Hey, friends, and welcome to the Genius Way Show. I'm your host, Ben Hummel. I'm really happy to be here with you this week as we wind down our year of 2023. And tonight we're going to get into a different set of circumstances around what to do with fear, understanding and releasing fear. And so I want to start out by sharing a quick quote with you by this author named Basil King. And Basil King wrote a book called The Conquest of Fear. And in it, he has this beautiful little juicy quote. He says, "As I ceased to show fear, the life principle hastened to my aid. Little by little, I came to the belief that the world about me was a system of cooperative friendliness, and that it was my part to use it in that way." So he became, in working out his fears, he became aware of the quality of existence being a cooperative and friendly place. And that if he can use it in that way, if he can approach life in that way, that cooperativeness and that friendliness is how he experienced his life. So I'm going to ask you a basic question. What kind of universe do you live in? What is the world like to you? So, you know, we have to take a real close look to see the quality and the fiber of our daily experience to tell us what universe we're living in. Basil was saying, okay, I found that the universe was cooperative and friendly when I took a close look, when I let go of my fear. And so a lot of us don't have that outlook, and a lot of us have like a basic distrust of the world, and anywhere from cooperative friendliness all to the nihilistic idea of the universe is against me and everything is a struggle. So we fall anywhere in between there. And so I'm asking you, what about yours? What does your universe feel like day to day? What does it feel like to you? And so to take a closer look on that, we're going to work a little bit on that this week in this show. But to take a closer look, we have to become aware of the idea of schemas. So this is a psychological concept where a schema is basically a deep assumption we have about the world. And let's say the analogy I like to use with my clients is, pretend you're standing on a cement floor. And that cement floor, which is your foundation, is supported by, a certain amount of pillars and posts. These posts are holding up the foundation. You can only see the floor. You can't see the posts underneath it. And so our schemas are these posts that are holding up the foundation of our identity and our understanding of the world and our understanding of our place in it and so forth. So each one of these posts is a schema, and it's a deeply held assumption that is so deep in our awareness that we don't even know what they are until we deeply examine them. And so one of the pillars is about what kind of universe you live in. One of the schemas is, what universe do I live in? And sometimes when in times of trauma, like let's say you're living somewhere and all of a sudden your city gets bombed, you're going to have to take a closer look, because one of those pillars, if you were feeling, oh, I'm living in a happy, peaceful, friendly, loving world, and then the bomb goes off, one of your schemas is going to be disturbed. The problem is you can't see it because it's underneath your foundation, but you know something's wrong, right? So underneath there, one of your schemas is about how safe the world is and how friendly the world is, or not. And again, unless we look very deeply and very closely, that feeling of which universe we live in, the quality of our own personal universe, exists on that schema level, and we never get to question on whether we're correct or not, whether or not it's actually like that, or whether it's our understanding of it, right? So you have to take a deep look, and I'm going to help you with that later on in the show. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what the schemas are. And that is the level at which we perceive either the friendliness or the unfriendliness or the cooperative or uncooperative aspect of the world, of the universe, of the existence that we live in personally, right? So Basil comes up with like, hey, when I let go of my fear, I saw the universe completely different. It was it was a friendly and cooperative place instead of a scary place. So then we have to ask, okay, what's fear? What is what is the nexus of any fear that comes into your life, And so if you live in a fearful world, if you live in a universe that feels like everything is scary and working against you and that everything is a struggle, guess what's going to happen? Guess what's going to happen? There are times when the universe that we live in feels tough. It feels, traumatic, and it is traumatic. And there are times, but in general, there's a big kind of meta feeling that each individual has about their life. This can be changed. The traumas and the circumstances are things that happen to us. The meta feeling that the world is basically safe and the world is helping me and cooperating with me. That's on a more of like a being level rather than a transactional level, rather than on a level of experiences, right? Like things that happen to us. If we are allowed to have experiences, even if they're tough, and let them in and then let them go, we'll come back down to the framework of, okay, the world is basically safe and it allows me to function and it allows me to be creative and to thrive. Okay, so again, ask yourself, which universe do I live in? What are the qualities that my universe has? And you'll see that there are things that come from circumstances and things that come from identity. How do I approach this universe? How do I expect it to respond to me? And again, only by taking a deep dive will we know those things. So then we've got to talk about what creates the fear that we experience from day to day. What is fear? So let's start with the biological, neurobiological. When we're afraid, our brain produces certain chemicals. Usually it's cortisol and adrenaline that flood our amygdala, floods our system with cortisol and adrenaline, and it makes us fearful. It makes us want to run or fight or freeze. It makes us want to kind of defend ourselves. It tells us that the world is scary and we better get our together and get out of there or fight or do something, right? And so that's on one level. That fear is, momentarily or for a little while, the trigger happens and we get flooded with the cortisol and adrenaline, causes a fear response, and then we go from there. So that's that level. There's a deeper fear. There is a fear that goes to the level of existence. Like, okay, if we're not reconciled with the fact that each one of us is going to pass away at one point, then we are going to be fearful of that happening. But usually fear is kind of a tightness. It's something getting tight and something kind of locking down and not being able to move, not being able to shift and flow with the rest of life. Fear kind of paralyzes us, okay? It paralyzes us from living in the moment, So there's this beautiful Native American saying. This goes something like this, and I'm paraphrasing. It says, I go about in pity for myself, and all the while, a great wind is bearing me across the sky. And so for those of us who want to deal with our fears and who want to deal with, how to understand and release them, when we take a very, very close look, we can see through our history, no matter what was happening to us, there's this current of life described in that quote as a great wind, but a current of life, a flow to life, a Tao, let's call it, okay, the flow of life, the movement of life. That is taking place within us, and moving our life forward. It never stops. It never stops flowing and moving. And so when we freak out and kind of embrace fear, we are stopping that flow, that natural flow that our life has to it. We're stopping it, and we are not wanting something to happen. When we're afraid of something, we're not wanting that to be. We're not wanting it to exist. We're not wanting it to happen. And so we're kind of locking down and freezing around that idea. Whereas, we don't know what's going to happen. No one does. And if we have the ability to walk open-heartedly through our world, moving with this movement of life, we usually find that the world is cooperative. We set ourselves up to be cooperated with. We set ourselves up to be participated with. We are part of the flow instead of being afraid that the flow isn't going to happen. So it's literally like this. I had this experience one time. It was very, very weird. And it was during the time when I was really, really anxious. I had been through a trauma in my life. And I remember sitting by this stream. And the stream was flowing. And I had this deep kind of sinking fear that, like, oh my God, how is it possible that this stream flows constantly? Isn't it going to run out of water somehow? And I'm not like a geologist or whatever, that someone that studies the flow of water. But when I think about it with that fearful mind, it's like, how does this possibly work? How can it possibly keep flowing and not run out? And meanwhile, I don't have to worry about that. The earth is taking care of itself. The stream has been running for 1,000 years or more. I don't have to worry about that. Same thing. This body, there are so many mechanisms and different actions going on in this body that are miraculous that we will never know about. We'll never know how these things work and what gets fixed and what doesn't. We know very, very little about what happens all day long. One thing we can do is just trust, oh, actually, wow, I woke up today. And, I'm walking around and doing my thing. Well, some energy, some flow is happening that doesn't need my fear to manage it. It doesn't need my fear to get in the way and make sure that my heart is beating and that my blood is pumping, my skin is shedding. The molecules are doing what they're doing, and the cells are taking care of themselves. We can't. And so sometimes when we're afraid, when we embrace fear, rather, we are trying to manage all this stuff. And it's just as impossible as trying to make sure that your blood is actually flowing, that your heart is actually beating, that your hair is actually growing. You can't do it. So it's the same thing when we're approaching fear. Whatever we're afraid of in terms of, how is my place and my position in the world? What's going to happen to me? How I'm dealing with this thing. It's a much more intelligent thing to move forward with a sense of trust and a sense that everything is kind of working together with me. Everything is cooperating with me. Existence wants me to be here. Okay? That's kind of the whole basis of the genius way. Existence wants me to be here, and I'm part of that existence. This is not a mistake. So therefore, I'm not here as a joke. Existence kind of spit me out here, and then, now it's going to be against me every day. It's going to be pushing back. It's going to be resisting me. No. We're here. We're meant to be here as long as we are. We're meant to express ourselves here, and we're meant to experience the flow and the cooperation and the friendliness of existence all around us. So this is what the genius way is about. It's not just dealing with fear in this way. It's like moving through the world knowing that you're an intricate part of it, and that what you do when you are kind of conscious and aware of that quality in yourself, what you do matters a great deal to the world around you. So sometimes we don't know how much our life means to others around us, and we kind of assume that we're kind of invisible here without any kind of connection or making any kind of difference. So I'm going to show you this little video here about a person that pretty much all of us know, and how different it feels when he's acknowledging and gets acknowledgement from the rest of the world in terms of how much difference his life has made to everyone else. So take a look at this, and I'll see you on the other side. Yeah, so Van Gogh had no idea how popular or famous or what he was doing, how it was touching the rest of the world or was going to touch the rest of the world. I think he sold one painting while he was alive. But there was a flow happening to create all that art that at some point would be seen by others as being pretty miraculous. The point is that during his lifetime, Van Gogh or Van Gogh was living kind of a miserable, scary life. There's probably lots of mental health issues that may have, he might have benefited if he had lived 200 years later or something. But there was a lot of untreated mental illness. There might have even been some kind of poisoning. He drank a lot of absinthe. And so there's speculation about him going mad from drinking absinthe that was created in a certain way back in the time. But, regardless of that, his life experience, he experienced a lot of fear, a lot of, a lot of turmoil and anguish in his life. And so I can only imagine that painting these things was quite an outlet for him, but his daily experience was pretty miserable. And usually it's because of that amount of fear and that, I'm not living in a cooperative universe, right? So you think about it this way. He was making all these paintings and not selling any. No one understood him, right? And part of the anguish was about, wow, I'm offering something that I feel is so great. And every day I kind of have to doubt myself, doubt my vision, doubt my skills, and the world is not responding to me. And so as he kept feeling that, it kept being perpetuated. And I guarantee he did not have a schema underneath there that was saying the world is nice and cooperative and the world kind of, participates with me and is friendly. Guaranteed that wasn't there. So how do we deal with that? Well, one of the things is that, the basic tenet of depth psychology, which is what I practice, is that to make the unconscious conscious is how we transform our lives and heal our lives. And so if you have a basic schema, a basic assumption, remember that pillar holding up your foundation of your identity? If one of those basic assumptions is that the world is not friendly and cooperative, we have to make that unconscious belief conscious. In other words, we have to look at it closely and see, hey, that's actually what I feel. I feel like this is a scary place. And I walk around kind of with that assumption. And so when we do that, guaranteed the world is not going to be friendly. So am I saying that we're making the world everything what it is and we'll never have any trauma or never have any scary things happen to us? Certainly not. Certainly not. With the most beautiful, amazing lives, there are always scary and fearful and scary things that happen. But the entire schema, the idea, the basic belief, a core belief that the world is basically scary is something that we can work on and address and release. Because in terms of the flow of life that I was talking about before, we don't know what it's going to do. We do know that it's going to keep moving. Even the scariest things and the most traumatic things can't stay there forever. They move, they flow, they keep going. And we, as humans, if we're not conscious, we tend to hang on to the things that scare us. And really, those things are trying to get away from us. They're trying to get away. They're trying to escape, and we hold on to them. That's kind of what happens in a nutshell. So In depth psychology, you make the unconscious conscious, then all that energy that it took to kind of uh, defend yourself from a scary, uncooperative world, all that energy that took to hold on and kind of freeze around that idea, that gets released now. And you get to be creative with that, all that energy that was used to keep everything stuck, right? So we take a good look at how we are frozen around the idea of an unfriendly, uncooperative universe and our fear around that. And we take a very close look, we make it conscious, and then we use that energy for something else. That's how the transformation happens. That's how to deal with and release fear. So first you have to see, what am I doing with this, this kind of innocent universe? What am I doing to perpetuate this fear that I'm holding on to? So what we're going to do right now, I am going to, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And on the other side of that commercial, I'm going to do a guided visualization for you that if you follow along, you're going to find ways to get into that layer of fear that might be at your core, and a core belief, and be able to kind of let it go and let it move. So we'll do that in right after the commercial, and I'll see you on the other side. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in, and then deeply exhale. Imagine that your basic identity as a person appears before you as a sturdy floor that you can walk on. And as you walk around on this floor, feel the familiarity and solidity that it has as your foundational sense of self. As you're walking in this familiar space, you notice a set of stairs leading down in one corner of the room. You walk down the stairs. When you get to the bottom of the stairs, you can see that this floor you've been walking on is being held up by 7 stone pillars. Each one of these pillars represents a deep assumption about things that allow you to function in the world. One of these pillars represents the core assumption that you have about the quality of the universe you live in. Aspects of your assumption are inscribed on the pillar. What is written on your pillar? Is this what you thought was supporting your ideas about the universe you live in? Is it different from what you thought? On a table next to the pillar, you see a small hammer and writing chisel. These are here for you to make any changes you like to your core assumptions. What changes do you make, if any? Remember that this will be the new assumption about the universe that you live in that holds up your identity going forward. Now you find the steps and make your way back up to your identity floor. Take a walk around. Does anything feel different to you about the quality of your foundation? And now, with this experience fully intact in your awareness, and when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into this room. And so, were you able to see any kind of schemas that were keeping you in a state of believing that the world is not conducive to you being here and expressing yourself and creating the life that you want? Have you seen that? Were you able to catch a glance at that and were able to shift it a little bit? Hopefully so. Remember, this kind of work you can do a little bit every day. When you find one of these guided visualizations that work for you, make it your own. Do something with it. Change it, and bring it to a place where you can figure something out to move that energy for yourself and make that change. Keep going with it. So I want to read another quote to you, and this is more about like the opening up and understanding what we have as our basic schemas. So there's a guy named Joseph Goldstein, and this is his quote: "Just as the light of a single candle can dispel the darkness of 1,000 years, the moment we light a single candle of wisdom, no matter how long or deep our confusion, our ignorance is dispelled." And so, what is this single candle of wisdom? How does one get that candle of wisdom? How does that happen? You know, where do you get the candle of wisdom? You can't go buy one. You can't dig one up in your backyard. So one of the ways that wisdom happens is by kind of making the effort to understand, like I was talking about, of looking at our schemas, taking a deep dive, making the unconscious conscious. All this effort makes us susceptible to little flashes of wisdom or satori's or mini enlightenments that to happen to us. So when we put in the effort, it's not the effort that creates the wisdom or the candle of wisdom, but the effort makes us ready for that to happen by itself. I know it's a little weird, but it's true. The efforting doesn't do it by itself, but unless you make the effort to understand and change, the thing that happens kind of magically doesn't happen. I didn't make it up. It's kind of the way it works. So that's something we all have to get on board with. You know, the thing that brings the enlightenment, the awakening, the insight that dispels the darkness, we can't do it directly, but our sincere effort to take a look at our schemas, to take a look at our core beliefs that are not working for us, our effort to do that makes us open to something new that can actually shift that for us. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes a lot of sense, because that's the way these kind of conscious mechanics work here. So again, take a deep dive into how you're seeing the universe around you, and see if you can locate, like you did before in the guided visual, how am I moving about in this world, and what is it that I feel like I'm moving around in? What is the flavor of this existence that I find myself in, and how am I either participating, or how am I carrying forward a false narrative of how the universe actually is? So I'm sure, like anybody, you would want to live in a friendly, cooperative universe, just like Basil found. And his whole point of this is like, when I let go of my fear, I felt that I was living in this cooperative and friendly universe, and that it was my part, it was my job to see it that way and kind of live that way. So when you get to that level of like, wow, this is how I am going to participate with the universe. I'm going to see it this way. I'm going to hold this vision for the universe that I live in. I'm going to hold this vision of, it's friendly, it's cooperative, it's like conducive for me to be here and express my genius. That's the best that we can do. That's the most that we can do. And this way you go every day into your world with an openness and a letting go of whatever is fearful and whatever is kind of getting in your way at any time. Life is moving, life is flowing, we can flow with it. That's the bottom line. We all want to live in a friendly and cooperative universe, but few of us know that we have the power to create that experience for ourselves. Because first we have to acknowledge the fear-based core belief that the universe is somehow working against us. So only by an extremely close inspection of our own deep assumptions can we illuminate the path of life without fear and of seeing our intrinsic value as we co-create along with everything and everyone else. The most courageous act is to release the belief that we have to be afraid and to live bravely in each moment that flows on and on before us. And that's our show. Thank you so much for joining me here. I enjoyed spending this time with you, and I enjoy hearing from you guys every week when you write your questions and so forth. I want to invite you to go to thegeniusway.com if you want to contact me, if you have any questions or comments. Join my website for a free membership where you get access to all these things that I'm uploading weekly. And until next time, I want to wish you a great holiday. And I hope that your life is filled with lots of blessings and creativity that you can share with the rest of the people and beings in your life. I will see you next week. And until then, I encourage you to stay curious, be kind to yourself, and remember that your genius has something to say.
Thanks for watching The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel. Make sure to visit thegeniusway.com for the resources you need to help you on your personal life journey. You can contact Ben at ben@thegeniusway.com. And you can follow The Genius Way with Ben Hummel on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for streaming The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel.